David, you can start to present your, we will waiting your, but just to present about 360 to 360 growth wheel for a while.
Yes, till the certainly give a little background information maybe while we wait. Again, I think Safura Atan, I just was with her on WhatsApp. I think she'll be here any moment. But let me maybe give some general background information. We are actually going to talk a little bit about the value of the business advisor in this session, and I'm going to share insights about how to become a trusted business advisor. And I see Safura is coming in right now. So yeah, I think you're muted, Dr. Hanadi, or maybe you're speaking to somebody else.
No, I'm speaking with you. I'm so sorry, but it's muted. Dr. David, before you start in your session, I need you to explain for the people your journey as when you start. Do you remember you told me your story and how you converted all your inventions to be product and how you spread it worldwide? Hi, Safura, how are you? And how you spread it worldwide, just to give more motivations for the listeners, how you starting with your 360 wheels as a small startup coming from Copenhagen.
Yes, I'd be happy to do that. Let me just get some different slides then here. And here we go. All right. So yeah, usually I would not include this information in our session because we have precious time. But since we have a little extra time, I'm certainly delighted to have the opportunity to share a little bit about our story here in Growth Wheel. So Growth Wheel is a business advisory system. Our clients are business advisors, coaches, consultants, counselors, accelerators, incubator programs, universities, women business centers, banks, lenders, and many other entrepreneurs in the system. And we developed a complete advisory platform that is used for the entire workflow when you're a business advisor, from intake of client to guiding them, sharing tools with them, tracking their information, reporting impact, and so on. And it was started back in Denmark in 15 years ago, in 2008, where it was rolled out nationwide in a license agreement with the Danish Ministry of Economics and Growth. So this tool has been used for a long time in the country. However, as an entrepreneur, I wanted to try my luck in the United States. So I moved with my family and we launched Growth Wheel at another conference like this one, though in person, in Orlando in 2010, and suggested that there are alternatives to conventional business planning, and that whenever you're a business advisor, you do need a 360 view on a business. And today, Growth Wheel is used in 49 states in the US. Some of the SBDC networks have implemented it statewide. We work with minority business centers, incubators, women business centers, and so on. And it's now a total of 4,400 advisors that has been trained since 2008. That is 25 business advisors every single month for 15 years. One of them is Safura, who's with us here today, who is one of our, in fact, I guess our first certified business advisor in Malaysia, certainly the longest standing. I think we can credit Safura for bringing Growth Wheel to Malaysia for sure. But we are also in another 68 countries, including yourself, Dr. Hanadi, representing us in Kuwait, of course. And we also have in the Middle East clients in KSA, in Lebanon, in Egypt, Morocco, and several other countries in the Middle East. And we've translated Growth Wheel into 19 languages, including Arabic. So our entire platform and software is available in Arabic. So that's kind of the world that we are in, and what we offer is fourth thing. Well, we can say here I have some more slides. Yeah, we're going to see why are all these people using Growth Wheel anyway. It is a business advisory system to help everyone be the best business advisor they can be, and it does raise the question for all of us: how do we become a better business advisor? It's a challenge that, you know, for advisors that to get overwhelmed by this, you know, highly complex role that it is to advise businesses in many different industries, many different life stages, and in many different sizes. But the real problem is to get organized as a business advisor, and that's why we made a system for that, a system that has 4 components. We have a certification program, number 1, where we train advisors in advising with confidence and managing the entire workflow, all the processes you work with as a business advisor. Number 2, we have a business tool library. So we try to collect all the business tools you need in one place. It's a huge library with hundreds of tools. All of the tools are one page. So it's easy and simple, and no one gets overwhelmed by finding the tool they need in the library. Number 3, we have an advisor CRM and client portal. So for many clients, Growth Wheel replace the likes of Salesforce and Pipedrive and Soho and other systems to keep track of clients. And what is different about the Growth Wheel Advisor CRM, that it's also a client portal. So clients can log in, and now you can collaborate in the cloud, and you can have a digital relationship with clients in between meetings, or even at all times if you don't see your clients ever, but just manage that relationship online completely. We also have an e-learning platform, so that when advisors don't have time to teach and educate clients on all the details, client can go in and they can take classes that gets them trained in the basics of business, so the advisor doesn't have to spend time on it. So yeah, all in all, a complete system to manage that advisory process. I can say a few more words about our training program. Everybody gets certified as a business advisor in the outset, and then they can take workshops every year to increase their insights and knowledge, so they can become a Growth Wheel certified professional advisor, a specialist advisor, an expert advisor, and maybe even a master business advisor. And that works that the way that you have take free workshops every year along with a recertification, and all these things are free. So once you are a Growth Wheel certified advisor, you have a golden ticket, you have access to take this training and increase your skills along the way. And people do it for 3 reasons. It is a way to advise clients with confidence and be more sure about all the things that requires. It is a way to build a career path with certificates, so you get documentation from what you've done. And it is this program offers up to 48 hours of professional development per year. So for organizations that has a requirement for a certain amount of training that advisors should have, this at least cover 48 hours, which is sufficient for many. I'll say a few words about the Growth Wheel itself as well. It is a simple way to look at a business. It's a framework, so we can talk to a business about the challenges they have. And they have 4. In fact, if you are in a business, or you are in a university, or you run an incubation program, or even if you are an entrepreneur yourself, or even a business of a large scale, you have these 4 challenges that are the same for everybody, no matter what industry you're in, no matter what life stage you're in, no matter what size you're in. And they're no surprise to anyone. You know them very well. It is the 4 basic building blocks of business. Every business is faced by the challenge of creating an attractive business concept, a product, a service, a technology, something that somebody wants to buy, maybe a solar system, for example. And it's got to have the right price, the right market, be different than the competition, has to have a good revenue model, a good value proposition, and so on. But it's not all. You also need to have a strong organization behind it, with staff, with partners, with owners, with investors, with business processes, and so on. And even if you have a great idea and a great team, there's one other challenge, which is to build lasting customer relations, because that's the only place the income can come from. through marketing and branding and communication and networking and all those things. But even if you have a lot of customers and write a lot of invoices, there's one last challenge, which is to make money, have profitable operations and maintaining profitable operations. And what Growthwheel does is to break this down into 20 focus areas. So business advisors can talk to clients about what is the most important thing right now. And that's how, we develop this Growthwheel framework. So our training is based on this. Our toolbox, our business tool library is based on this. Our e-learning platform is based on this. And when clients log into the portal, they have access to resources about these things. So that Safura was, I think, exactly 10 minutes in just spending time while we were waiting to get ready for the real session here. So thank you again for the opportunity to just say a few words about our company before we get started on the real interesting session here today. And Safura, I see that you are ready.
Oh, okay. All right. So quickly, I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do. Ahlan wa sahlan, kaifa haluk? Hello, everyone. Good morning. It's morning in Malaysia. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. So I'm just gonna quickly open my slides very quickly. And what I'm gonna share is my experience and how important business advisors are when we're looking at entrepreneur development ecosystem, and how, to some extent, the reason why I use Growthwheel, not to hard sell it, but to really showcase why it's super helpful for business advisors. So let me just quickly share my screen. If I can get it. Yeah, here we go. Right, so I am Safura Atan. I am with Stratnavigo Consulting PLT. I formed this company in 2020, and I've known David, I think, since 2015, and I brought him to Malaysia 2017. Why? Because of my background in entrepreneur development. Before I was doing this freelance, I was actually with an Institute Keusahawanan Negara, or it means the National Institute of Entrepreneurship in Malaysia. And just quickly, the current state of entrepreneur development in Malaysia per se, we're looking at these 5 things: market access, funding, policy, training, and infrastructure. But the thing is, these things we have been doing for the past 60 odd years. And the thing is, how we teach or how we train people to be entrepreneurs, we teach them more how to manage, not how to be entrepreneurial. It's just like a factory. We just give them input. We say this, you got to learn to do a business plan and, do the accounting, do the systems, do the operation, do your calculation, and you're supposed to be successful. But the challenge is it doesn't happen that way. And as we always say, Albert Einstein says, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, is insanity. So when I was in the Institute, one of the things that I did was to look at what could we do differently to help Malaysia propel to the next level. So 3 things that I noticed is this: people, process, and platform. Because when we talk about entrepreneurship, like I mentioned, we can't teach them linear, like you go in a manufacturing system. But we have to take into consideration that entrepreneurship is very creative and innovative. It's individual. So how do we do it? And looking at the learning process, 10% happens formal, classroom, 20% is informal, through conversations, through role playing, through having feedback from people, and the 70% happens on the job. So when we look at the entrepreneurship development learning, it's on the job. It's when they're doing the things that they're doing is when they learn. The challenge is this: when we have our current or, you know, this, the way we teach people entrepreneurship is pretty much, there's not much reflection. You just do what I tell you to do, you're going to get the outcome that you want. It's like a copy-paste situation, where in reality, it doesn't work that way. So what's missing? To me, what's missing is an advisor, you know, somebody to help you. Not really, I would say, hold the hand and tell you how to do it, but rather be the guide. Like you're climbing a mountain, having this mountain guide sharing with you some sort of experience, but at the same time, allowing the entrepreneur to reflect and find their own solution. The challenge is that when we do advisory, typically advisors or coaches, what happens is that they bring in their knowledge, they bring in their own personality, and to some extent, it impedes the learning, the thinking of the entrepreneur. For example, like me, I'm an accountant by qualification. So if I were to go to an entrepreneur with my current knowledge and expertise, the first thing I'll ask them is, hey, show me your financial statements. Whereas the actual problem is not, maybe it's, you know, that's the last thing in their mind. The first thing in their mind is, you know, how do I sell my product, or am I doing well? So when I come in with my knowledge and my expertise and imposing on them, it doesn't help them. So that's one of the things that I noticed from my research when I was doing with the Institute. And of course, you know, I also went to Babson and learning from Saraswati, not directly, reading her book, because she says, you know, entrepreneurs need to start with what they have. They need to experience and reflect from their doing. So they think of control, what decisions and what actions I need to make, rather than focusing on what is unknown. So this is where, for me, I look at the need, especially in Malaysia, to help entrepreneurs to be able to pilot their plane the way they should pilot their plane, rather than the way I, as an external party or a government, tells them how it should be done. So one of the things that I think that really helped for me, and the reason why I'm a real believer in Growth Wheel, is because it allows that. As a Growth Wheel advisor, I have 100+ tools in my hand, so I don't need to be an expert. Who needs to be the expert is the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur is the expert in their business, and with the frameworks, with the decision sheets that we give them, they are empowered to make their decisions and take actions according to their needs. So just to share an example that I like to give, a couple of examples. The quick one is a cafe owner. He used to work in Australia, and he was so into the lamb, what do you call it, slow roasted lamb and things like that, which is a bit pricey in Malaysia. But the thing is, he said, hey, I want to start. If I were somebody from a financial point of view, I would say you need to have a cafe. You need to rent out a space in a commercial area. But instead, I asked him, you know, using the decision sheets, I asked him, you know, hey, what do you think you need to do? He says, I need to start. What do you have? So he used the checklist to actually list out what are the things that he has, what are the things he doesn't have, what are the things he needs to do, and we gave a timeline to that. So he started off actually from his own kitchen at home. Using the decision sheets helped him to decide, just to start off, to validate his business, he's just going to do business from home. So he opened a home-based cafe, and he started making decisions, validating his decision, validating his action plan. And now he actually has moved out to a proper restaurant in a commercial area. Why? Because he already has the confidence that the market is there, it's validated. He has already enough people to cover the cost for him to start off to have a proper cafe in a commercial area. So to me, I did not impose what I thought as an advisor that he should have done. But using the decision sheets has allowed him to think on his own, come up with his solution, and go through it. So that's one experience for me. I think it was really super useful to have decision sheets that, frankly speaking, for me, I also use it. For example, social media marketing, not my expertise, but by having those decision sheets already ready for the entrepreneur to use when they need it and showcasing it to them helps them make the right decision and action at that moment. So here, as mentioned by David, are the 20 focus areas that helps entrepreneurs to actually make the decisions and actions that they needed. What I also like, taking into consideration that it's a buffet. You start where you need to start. You're not forced to follow a specific process or procedure. So the entrepreneur tells us, as the advisor, hey, I want to look at my vision. Then we work on the vision. Or we say, I need to make some decisions now. So we focus on what's important to them rather than what I think is important. So I really love the flexibility of Growth Wheel in handling my advisory work with my clients. Having said that, one of the things that we face challenge, Growth Wheel to me is like this awesome, perfect platform. But the thing is, people are still reluctant at most times to use the technology, to go in the platform because they feel that it takes a bit of time. But for me, what's the beauty is that we are also adaptable. If the entrepreneur is small and they're not comfortable with the tech, we can do it pen and paper. If they are of a higher level, more educated, and have experience on cloud and using the technology, then we showcase them the technology. So as an advisor, I'm more flexible, I'm more adaptable, I'm able to use as and when required by the entrepreneur. So to me, that's the beauty. Another example I like to share is the company that used to be very traditional in how they run their business. They do, in Malaysia, we call it prawn crackers. And the prawn crackers that they used to do is frozen, meaning they are very limited logistically when it comes to trying to penetrate export market. So with the decision sheet, sharing with them, having conversations, showing them the export decision sheets, they said, hey, we need to adapt our product so it'll be logistically more feasible. So now they're producing dried fish crackers, and they just went to Indonesia and Japan to showcase their product, which much success. So that's where, for me, Growth Wheel is meant for the advisor. It helps the advisor to be confident in being the best advisor to the client without, pushing their personality and knowledge, making the entrepreneur more empowered to make decisions and take action. So to me, just showcasing from a practitioner point of view, how Growth Wheel has helped us make decisions and take actions. And I'm all for getting more Malaysians to be a certified business advisor in Malaysia. So that's it from me. David, back to you.
Much, Safura, for giving these insights from a practitioner's point of view. And I think we can certainly welcome any questions in the chat while we continue. If anybody wants to ask a question or add a comment to what Safura just shared with us just now. I am going to move on. I wonder, Dr. Hanadi, if we have our other speaker on the line, or whether we should continue.
No, we continue our discussion because I didn't see these speakers will be available now. Then you can start the discussions with the Safura. Thank you so much, Safura, about your nice presentation, and also David. We have a great relationship, more than 15 years, right? As we need to mention, I'm the first practitioner or advisory with a growth wheel from the Middle East. Then the others will be copying me, the other countries. I'm the first who's doing the growth wheel. And I'm so interested to joining all those here with David and the friend of David, all the consultant of David. We need to, David, present the best challenges you reach it when you start this one, because as you know, many people having specifically in the journey for the entrepreneurs, we have some, before you establishing your startup, you have some challenges because you put in your consideration who will accept it, why they coming for David rather than going for McKinsey, why not processing with going to the financial institutions to supporting them, why they didn't go for the consultancies who's preparing a strategy or a business plan, why they not implementing what is the name for your competitor, this one in one page, what we call it, Canvas, why we going for indicators and some details, why we didn't go only with the Canvas. The Canvas is free of charge and it's only one page available there. Just to present, inform the people about your journey, because everyone need to learning from your experiences, how you're reaching the internationalizations from startup with their idea and inventions, because your production or your product is inventions of David, and then you convert it to be from inventions to be entrepreneurs or small startup, then you reaching the internationalization with now most of all countries over all the world implementing your tools. Can you please give us more about you?
Yes, I think maybe the best way to start would be to let the tool talk for itself, to kind of demonstrate what it is about, and try to answer some of your questions along the way. And this is, I think, in a great extension of what Safura has been presenting, to take a little bit of a deeper dive, because if you are a practitioner, if you are a business advisor, you need to figure out, what matters most for the client. And I think what makes Growth Wheel different than some of the other tools out there is the simplicity. So how do we find out what it is that clients really need to grow their business in an industry? It is certainly a challenge that clients have very many needs and too little time. Clients would need everything we can think of. And even if they finish one area, very soon they will need the same thing again. But the real problem is that there's too little prioritization. There are many ways to do prioritization and to find out what is important. And I'm going to show you here 6 classic ways to do that. One way that most advisors are maybe using, if they don't have any tools, is simply to ask client questions. So to find out what matters most, you would ask someone, what's most important? What matters most to you? And some advisors have either in the back of their mind or even in a list questions that they ask the company about their products and their markets and their challenges and things like that. And that is certainly a way to find out somebody's needs. Another way is, or used to be, writing a complete business plan. Of course, this is no longer the approach for most business advisors. Safura showed Saraswati and spoke a little bit about this. The problem with business plans are many. One thing is you have to read them. Another problem is you have to write them. It takes a lot of resources. But if you have actually made them, then it is a great way to understand somebody's needs. You can read it and look through and analyze and figure that out. Now, I will say that with AI, the problems of the business plans are much smaller, which is the time it takes writing them. It's much easier today to write a business plan, but on the other hand, it's equally harder to qualify it because it's no longer an expression of the person who wrote it, what their thoughts was, and it does no longer disclose when there's uncertainty and so on. It will produce a perfect, nicely readable, consistent plan, which is great. But at the same time, we may be losing out on really understanding what the needs are. So the work of the advisor is going to be the same to decipher it, and it'll be a lot of work, but it can be done. It's a way to understand someone's need. Another way to find out what a business needs is to look at its financials. Everything in a business shows up in the financials. If you hire someone, it's in the budget. If you go to a trade show, it's in the budget. If you develop a new product, it's in the budget. You can see margins, you can see ratios. There's so much information. So if you really analyze the budgets and financials of a company, yes, you would have a pretty good idea about what they need. A more simple approach would be a SWOT analysis. That is certainly known by many advisors. And it is a robust tool. It's been around since 1965. And of course, a simple way to make a brainstorm and a list of someone's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And as you have a conversation like that, you certainly identify needs. Maybe you have certain strengths that you need to utilize. Maybe you have weaknesses that you need to get away from and strengthen. There is opportunities in the market that will help you figure out what matters most, and there are threats that you need to protect yourself against. So that's another classic tool. Then there are tools focused on KPIs, and that would be, for example, the balanced scorecard, where you look not only at financial metrics, which is where it all ends, but you also look at other kinds of metrics for customers or, business processes or whatever you can think of, so that you show not only the profit and the revenue, but you show maybe the number of new customers, the customer satisfaction, the churn. You show maybe numbers for internal efficiency of releasing software updates and so on. So, if you actually have a company that has KPIs, or if you help the company define their KPIs, you can figure out what matters most and help them with that. And lastly, as you mentioned, Dr. Hanadi, there is Business Model Canvas, which we really like. It's a visual tool. It's one page. It has many of the values that we have in Growth Wheel. And Business Model Canvas, of course, is designed specifically to generate new business models. So when your need is to find a new business model, if your current business model is not efficient, if it's not producing the revenue and profit or that you expected, if investors are not attracted to it, the Business Model Canvas looks at 9 different elements that you can change. And for every time you change one element in the Business Model Canvas, you can generate potentially a new business model. So when you do that, you will identify needs of what needs to happen to implement such a business model. So no matter what you choose, these are all about having a structured way to find out what matters most for a client, instead of just having a talk. And it's in that line of thinking that we developed the Growth Wheel 360 assessment that was designed to be more simple than the others, but also comprehensive enough that you can find out what matters most. And this is a part of our software that we could demo if we had time, or everybody's welcome to join a demo, obviously, of Growth Wheel later. It's also a pad. So advisors will bring a piece of paper to a meeting, because sometimes in a meeting you cannot be looking into an iPad or a computer screen. Maybe you have a meeting over lunch, maybe you're in a boardroom, and it's nice to have a piece of paper to talk through things and then go back and track things online later on, maybe print out PDF files and so on. And I'm going to give you little insights into how you can make such a 360 assessment. It's the practice of advisors opening a conversation by asking clients what is the most important. We need to get the big picture first so we can focus on first things first. And the Growth Wheel 360 screening is a tool that takes only 10 minutes to use. In fact, I would even argue that if you spend too much time, you are over-analyzing the situation at this stage. What we're looking for is really a screening, right? Like in the doctor's office, where they do a quick health screening of your essentials before you dive into any issues there might be. And that's really all the Growth Wheel 360 screening is. You make a very simple assessment of these basic areas of business by asking clients, how are things going? Please rate this on a simple scale, 25, 50, 75, or 100%. So everyone can do this, because you can even think about your own organization. You can think about your own business, and pick any one of the focus areas, perhaps branding. So when you think about your brand, your visual identity, your name, when you think about your values, when you think about, the origin stories of the brand, when you think about your visual and physical appearance, how happy are you with that right now? And some might say 100. I think it's fine. There's not much I would change. Everything can always be better, but it's 100%. So we don't need to focus on it. Or you might say, well, it might be 75%. It's good enough, but if I had the time and resources, I think I would do a few more things. Maybe you're not sure that clients are loyal to your brand. Maybe you're not sure that they are really talking to others about it. Maybe they cannot explain what your brand is about, because those words have not been communicated clearly enough. So it might be 75, or maybe 25, because maybe you are a local business and you need to go international, and you realize that you need to rebrand. Maybe you need a different company name. Maybe you need a different, visual presence, or whatever it might be, so that you can work internationally. So that's how simple it is. And anyone can do it very fast. Look at your product, look at your brand, look at your financials. How happy are you with it from 25 to 100%? So the reason we do it is that by putting on a number, you have to be specific. And of course, whatever scores the lowest, if you're making an assessment of how the company is going, is where you want to focus. And this is different from just talking about a business and saying, I think my branding is okay. I think my products are just about as good as they can be. When it comes to business processes, we are doing, we're progressing. Those are words we can't use for any measuring. So when you assign a simple number, it's easy to see what gets more points and what gets less. It's also a mental exercise. When people go through it, they kind of go like, well, this is higher this one or lower this one. So it kind of focuses the client, makes them present in the conversation, and it raises questions about why is one thing more important than the other. So that's the simplicity of it. And I think Dr. Madie, to answer that question, when you look at the success of Growth Wheel, I think it's because it's so simple and very natural and close to what advisors are already doing. They're already assessing their clients' needs. They're already doing it by a set of questions, and the Growth Wheel 360 screening have this just structured in a really simple way. So maybe I could show a little demo. A video
maybe David, if you can add to that, my experience of using this. So typically, especially in a team, you've got a founder which has like 2 or 3 co-founders, and each one would have a different perspective of their business. So when we have something visual like this, when they sit down and they do it separately, please assess where you are in your business and how do you see your business going. You will realize that these three co-founders would have different perspective. They might, if they're focusing on marketing, they would say, maybe their marketing is, they would know what's happening rather than a partner who's working more on the financial things like that. So it opens up a more, what we call objective conversation. And it also allows us to actually ask, hey, what makes you think this? What made you give yourself this number? What validates it? So it makes them be more reflective in the process so that they would be able to go back to the information, to the data they already have about their business and say, this is the reason why I give this. So to some extent, it not only helps them to give a visual representation of an assessment of their business, but it also helps with the team building within the co-founders itself to say like, this is the reason why, and they already have labeled it. So then it is a bit arm's length. It's not very emotional conversation. And from my personal experience doing this in Malaysia, for example, is where a lot of people tend to think the problems is in marketing or other parts, the green, the customer relations parts or the operation. And when we have a conversation, we're sitting there and we're saying like, why do you think you have problems in marketing? And they would talk about it. And suddenly they realize that in actual fact, the problem is in their customer portfolio. They don't really know their customer segment. They don't really understand. They didn't work on who is the primary, secondary customer, which one pays the most. So that opens up the conversation to actually really allow them to dissect the challenges that they're facing. So just to add that, David.
Thank you very much, Safura. You bring up a couple of nice points, and while we discuss further, please, again, I invite everybody to share comments in the chat, as well as any questions you may want to go into. But I think you raise two important things, Safura. One is about tools that allows for collaboration between managers, and I think we could even add between managers and team members, because whether someone is a co-founder or they're part of a management team, it's really the same, right? They would need a tool to discuss and align themselves, and any tool can help create a common language. And I think that's another reason that we've seen of the wide adoption of Growth Wheel, is that it's a language that is international. It works in Malaysia, it works in Denmark, where I'm from, it works in the United States, where I live right now, it works in South Africa, where we have our colleague Hussain also with us today. It works also in rural areas, and it works in metropoles. It works for very young startups, and it works for large established businesses. And the only reason is that it's so fundamental and not really surprising. It's just one way of categorizing basic things in business, but when it comes out in a visual way, that's when it becomes that language that people can refer to. They can practically point. They have the color scheme. They, can discuss things just like you described. Now, we have a comment here, a raised hand from one of our participants. So maybe Dr. Hanadi, you will allow the participant to share their comments. It's from Trat.
Yes, go ahead.
Or maybe Trat just raised his hand to indicate agreement. I don't know if the attendees can be given a voice on the webinar.
We leave the discussions is only for the speaker, if any speaker. What about if Hilton's is asking some questions or participating because he's in our room? Can you share any comments?
And otherwise, I'm happy to further
Yeah,
discuss some of
continue. Yeah.
Yes, go
Safura's-
ahead. Continue, David. Continue.
Yeah. So we cannot give Trat a voice in the webinar. Maybe Trat, you can add a comment in the chat,
Chat. Yeah.
and I would be happy to answer that question, Trat. But I want to move then, meanwhile, along because the other thing that you talked about, Safura, was this important when you have a discussion between a group or founders with different perspectives, you get into the conversation that you touched upon about root causes. And I just want to add some visuals to that to dive a step deeper. And let me just get another slide deck up here to show how, here we go, how this works. And I would argue, now we're showing growth wheel, but you know, you can do this with without growth wheel, and you can do it with other tools here as well. All right, I think you have my screen up now, because what Safura talks about is how you find the client's real business problems. It's hard enough to reveal the problems behind the curtain, but one other thing is to reveal the root causes behind what is symptoms. And there really is more to the picture than meets the eye in any business. And that's why we need to do the root cause analysis. And as Safura described, we want to really look around, you know, the wheel around the entire business, whether you're using growth wheel or not, to connect the dots and see things with the whole holistic perspective. If you are a business advisor, you're already doing this. The 360 assessment just makes it visual. So let's see how you actually do that. We want to challenge clients with whatever comes up and see if we can offer a different perspective. So I think even you mentioned the examples of for if someone wants to focus on sales, that might be a good choice. They look at the wheel and they say sales is the most important because I can get more revenue, more profit, better liquidity, cash flow. I have client references, but maybe there's a root cause behind the lack of sales. And what you can do with a tool like Growth Wheel is to look around and maybe realize that the real problem is the product. So the reason that the business is not selling as much as it would like is because the product is not good enough. It needs to be more valuable product, needs to have different functionalities, maybe AI integrated. And one of these days at this conference, we're actually going to show you the Growth Wheel AI, maybe tomorrow or Wednesday at the same time. Any product can have different packaging, different characteristics, and so on. So when you do a root cause analysis, you're looking to see, could it be something else? And sales, that is the problem. So sales is the symptom, but the root cause is the product. However, there could be another root cause. It might be that the root cause is an organizational problem. It is the lack of a sales staff or qualifications of the sales staff. So when you're not selling, in some companies, small businesses for sure, you have maybe that's the owner who's doing all the selling. So the root cause of lack of sales is that the owner doesn't have time, and maybe, you know, is the only person to sell. Or if it's a larger organization, there might be too few salespeople, or they may not have sufficient training. So again, what seems to be on the surface a sales problem is in effect an organizational problem. And we can go on. A third example of what could be the problem could be the cost structure. So the reason that you are not selling enough in any business is because the costs are too high. So the sales price is too high. You may have a high cost structure. You may have increasing prices because of inflation or currency rates or other factors. So we think we are going to solve a sales problem, but we're actually going to solve a cost structure problem so that we can be more competitive. So those are 3 examples, but when you look at Growth Wheel, there could be 19 root causes for the lack of sales. Maybe it's the marketing materials that are not good enough. Maybe there's not enough networking. Someone is sitting in their office. Maybe it's the business idea itself. The mission and the vision is not strong enough. Maybe it's the revenue model. The price structure and the revenue models are not right. Maybe it's the customer portfolio. You are simply going for the wrong kinds of clients. And if you find other clients in other markets, they might be better. It could be you need to look at your competition. The reason for lack of sales is the competition is better at selling. It could be that you need board members or investors who can help you open doors to new customers. It could be that you need partnerships with agents or distributors or call centers to help you sell. It could be your business processes that are not being defined for how you should be selling. It could be that your contracts are too complicated. Nobody wants to sign them. It could be your facilities. You may be located in the wrong street, in the wrong city, in the wrong country. It could be IT systems. Maybe you do not have a CRM system. It could be your production and delivery system that is broken. Your deliveries are always late. Clients do not come back. That's why your sales are low. It could be lack of funding to invest in sales. It could be your brand that clients buy, but they don't come back. They're not loyal to the brand. Or it could be that you're not present in social media. So you don't get in touch with clients who could not find you in any other way than through the social media. That is 19 potential root causes for the lack of sales. And that's the approach with Growth Wheel when you are a counselor. You take a holistic perspective, as Safura said. You do it in a management team. You do it as an advisor. And you try to find out what matters most. That's the whole exercise that we're working on here, so that you can now start making an action plan for what matters most. All right. Again, I'm going to take a little pause here and see if you have anything to add, Safura. You are certainly someone who have a vast experience in doing these things. And I don't know if you could maybe share, what is the reaction from clients when you do this kind of a root cause analysis? What kind of reaction does that create on the client side?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, David. Well, usually when I have this conversation, they share first, especially if it's a team, management team, then they say, oh, I never knew you were having this problem, or I never knew this was how you looked at it. So it's a lot of like eureka moments for them. That's one. And especially, when they say, hey, I've been doing all this marketing, people are telling me to do this on social media and whatnot. And I said, okay, share with me, what is your segment market? Who are you targeting? And suddenly they say, one example is that I'm targeting 7 years old to 70-year-old. And I said, okay, wow, do you have the budget to cover? Then I said, no. Then what do you think? So the question is always going back to them, asking them to reflect. So it's not me telling them, hey, you got to do it this way. This is wrong. Because again, as a person, human being, if we are the one to tell them, you're not doing it right, what's the reaction? They're not going to accept. They're going to close. They're not going to even engage you as an advisor, because we're forcing our solution to them. So just to sort of like, Dr. Hanadi did say, why not a consultant? Why not hire somebody? Because in the end of the day, who's the expert in the business? It's the entrepreneur. If I were to give solution, this is when I do the workshops and they say, hey, tell me how I'm supposed to do it. And I say, well, if I tell you how you're supposed to do it, you have to give me shares in your company. Yes. I'm gonna own it. This is my, it's gonna be my business, but this is your business. So you are the expert and you need to come up with a solution. I help you through the process. So this, to me, Growth Wheel is more like a process which is not linear. It's an iterative process that you can go back forth on your priorities, what's important for you. And for me, that's the biggest aha. They always have this surprise look when we say, tell me about, let's go to the yellow segment, which is the business concept, because in the end of the day, most startup will start there. You know, some people, when they look at it, just to share, they also sometimes get very overwhelmed. They look at the 20 focus areas and say, wow, do I need to fill up everything? And the human instinct of I need to be good at everything is there. So me as the business advisor, I have to tell them, hey, there's no wrong or right. Anything that doesn't go against your religion, your belief, and the law, it's free for you to do it. For you to test, to experiment. So that's what I tell them. You got to be comfortable in you don't have to be 100%. You got to be comfortable to say, why 70, why 50? The reflection to me is the most important part as a business advisor, helping them through the process.
Right. So I think this is really excellent advice here for anyone who is an advisor. I think you're right that the advisor should not be the one giving the answers. The advisor should be one asking the questions. And I would go so far as to say, even if you have the answer, you are much better off in showing the path for someone. And like you described, Safura, you take off a lot of responsibilities off your shoulders. You don't really want ownership of the decisions. Unless you're on the board, unless you're an owner, unless you're an investor, that's a different situation. But as long as you're an advisor, counselor, mentor, coach, you are not going to assume that responsibility and certainly not take it away from the client. They need to reach these conclusions themselves. And one of the ways that can be done in practical terms is to give the client options. So what you do is not to tell them you should increase your price. You say you can either increase your price or lower your price. Or you say,
the easier part, David, just give them the article.
We certainly have tools for that.
Growthville has like 22 articles for every focus area where they can, sort of trigger their thought process. And also the other one is the decision sheet. It's very comprehensive. And just to share, maybe to give a bit of background for David doing this, he crowdsourced the tools. So the tools is not from David's own imagination, but rather from practitioners. Right, David? Right. So you ask everybody to give what are the tools that you use when you're addressing issues on marketing, branding, and all the focus areas. That's where you compile it as a comprehensive tool. So it's not from David's own imagination alone.
We can show some examples of how this is done. But the principle, whether you're using Growthville or not, is this idea of giving clients options instead of one single solution.
And reflections.
Yeah, exactly. So, instead of telling someone, I really think you should increase your price to get more revenue, or instead of telling them, I think you should lower your price to get more revenue, or even keep it as it is to get more revenue, you will tell the client, these are your options. And then you have a discussion with the client where they make the choice. Now, you can say, if it was me, I might choose this, as long as you don't claim that is the answer to the client. They may find their own answer for sure.
Because there's multiple contexts. There's multiple contexts to each options.
Exactly. And that's where the expertise, isn't it, of the advisor comes in. Your ability to relate to the client's situation, their environment, and so on. So let me show here some examples of how this looks. And if you are an advisor who is not going to give the advice, but is going to give clients options. So we can share, Safura, here some of our tools called frameworks. And this is an answer to the question of how you help clients get better ideas. So someone's like, how can I get more revenue? How can I do better marketing? How can I be better at hiring staff, and so on? And if you are a business advisor, the challenge is there's too much to know. There's just like so many things you need to be an expert on. Just look around the wheel, all those different areas, or think about all the books you read. But the real challenge is to remember all the things, because if you've been a business advisor for a while, or if you've been in business for a while, you already know very much. But how do you remember all those things from all the great books that you read? Well, we know that if you hear, you forget, but if you see, you remember. And that's why we need to use infographics to get more ideas. And we all know infographics. We use them every day. We see them every day. Here's an infographic, a classic one about the big cats. And, you know, when you see an infographic like this, you are reminded about the different types of big cats there are. If we don't look at this poster, we could all remember the lion, the tiger, the panther, the jaguar, or whatever. But we may just have forgotten the black Nepalese mountain lion, if there is such a thing. And the beauty with an infographic is that it helps us remember the different types in a category, whether it's a poster of big cats, whether it's a poster of fish, flowers, chilies, or different ways to do business. And what we've done in Growth Wheel is we try to make such infographics so you can see the alternatives for different aspects of the business, different aspects of the wheel. So how do you help clients, you know, look at these? Let me show you. I have my slides here. Hold on a second.
So while David is looking for the slides, you know, again, just to share, these tools are just tools to trigger thinking, to trigger reflection, to trigger what are the things that they could do and why. So for me, you know, I've met a lot of educators who are trying to teach entrepreneurship with university students. And for me, this is a great way to get them to be able to reflect on when they're going through the application of being an entrepreneur during that study, during the semester. Using these decision sheets actually help them reflect, you know, hey, why did I make those decisions? Why did I take that action? Did it work? Did it didn't work? If it worked, we continue. If it didn't work, what could you do differently? I think that's the most important part. Learning about entrepreneurship is reflect from our application. So David, have you found the slides?
Yes, and thank you for filling in for me right there. Let me get this up here. Why is it not doing what I want here today? Let me see here. It's going to be just one more moment. Well, as you know, Safura, we do have a lot of slides.
Yes, I know. A lot of information. And, you know, I do another challenge that I always hear from people, you know, especially if they don't, the first time using Growth Wheel, for example, is that they do also get overwhelmed by the tools that are available in Growth Wheel, the decision sheets and whatnot. For me, again, we always go back to the focus area. So if we just focus on what the entrepreneur needs, then we won't get lost.
Right.
Otherwise, you know, everything, we want to do everything. Every tool looks beautiful.
Let's see some.
Go ahead.
And I think you're right. Whether you're using Growth Wheel or any other tool, the only way to avoid clients getting overwhelmed is that you are going to be the filter. If you are an advisor, you want to filter the information and you want to make things simple. In fact, the Growth Wheel itself is such a framework. There are 4 things in a business, or there's 20 things in a business. And then you can dive down and show what are the different ways you can be profitable. What are the different players in the market? What are the different ways to do marketing? What are the kind of people you could have on your board? So a classic example of a framework, an infographic is this one, the product mix, where you can think about your own business, or you can think about one of your clients, one of the companies you may have invested in, how they can have introductory products, core products, add-on and flagship products. So this framework doesn't tell anybody what is right, but it opens up a conversation whether a business should have an introductory product, something cheap, free, or small to get a foot in the door. after you have had the client come in, and by the way, on LinkedIn, this is the freemium model before you actually buy a subscription. In the food shop, it's a little taster at the counter before you buy something. At the car dealership, you get a drive in the car before you buy it, and so on. So many of businesses have it, and it's one area of further developing the product portfolio. There's also core products, whatever that means. That in itself is an interesting conversation. What is a core product? Is it the one that gets the most attention, the most revenue, the most profit? And whenever people bought a core product, there can be an add-on, and some businesses make most of the money from the add-on. Would you like to have a coffee with your donut? Would you like to have an extra cable with your phone? And so on. And by helping businesses define add-on products, it's an avenue to get them to make more money. Flagship products at the bakery is the wedding cake. It's the biggest car you can get at the dealership. It's the most advanced phone with the most features and so on. Not everybody's buying the flagship product, but because you have it, they may buy smaller ones. So this is an example of an infographic where, as Safura described, you don't have to tell somebody what's the right solution, what's the right product. But by introducing a visual framework, you can advise them into making the choice. Now they see the options, and as Safura said, they may be the expert on their own business. So they know what they already have tried, they know what they should be trying next, and so on. Here's another example, the marketing thing. Marketing is much more than social media. So there are classic ways that are still very effective, from advertising, prints, direct marketing, publications, and various kinds of promotions. There are frameworks for being more profitable that shows that there are only two ways to be more profitable in a business: more revenue or less cost. And there's only 4 ways to increase your revenue, and there's only 4 ways to reduce your costs, and so on. So that is just an example here of some of the growth wheel frameworks that helps what Safura describes to avoid being the advisor that tells someone what to do, but be a facilitator of their decision-making process. And if you're not a growth wheel user, you can find plenty of other infographics. We structured them in a certain way. We color-coded them. We made them simple. We have a certain style. But the principle goes beyond growth wheel. It's the principle of choosing the advisory style that Safura has described and finding visual tools that will support giving clients options instead of giving them answers, right? Asking them questions instead of giving them answers. And these are examples of that, as we have 3 minutes left of our presentation here today. Are there any last questions or comments? Or Dr. Hanadi, is there anything you would like us to address in this session before I might say a few words about what we're going to cover in our sessions tomorrow, that I will have the pleasure of hosting as well?
Just a quick one, David, just, because Dr. Hanadi did talk about business model canvas, just a quick one on that.
Yeah.
Business model canvas actually complements growth wheel very much. Why? And I know it from experience, because I know business model canvas very well, used it a lot. But business model canvas is very strategic level, looking at the business as a whole. How could you be more in, exploiting or exploring your business model to create and capture value, where growth wheel supports it in the execution. To validate, to make decisions based on the strategy that we have, created through the business model canvas. So it is not something which is extraordinary or different or contradicting. Even if you talk about SWOT that David mentioned is since 1965, it makes, with a business model canvas and growth wheel, makes SWOT even more effective. Why? You're comparing your strength and weakness and opportunity and threat compared to somebody else's business, rather than in Malaysia we call short sendiri, or you just have self-belief. You're so into yourself, so you're doing your decision based on information and comparison.
I'm in total agreement, Safura, with your opinion, and also with David. Even though we can take it from other perspective, the canvas is focusing in generalization, but the growth wheel focusing in the the specific KPI, and in each KPI you can evaluate and get advice. On the other hand, the people who's using Canvas, if there are I put in my opinion, if it's a startup just starting the business 1 year or 2 years, it's difficult for them to go to the Canvas and writing their strategy. They need someone to write business plan for them or answering all the concern. But for the growth wheel, it's an easy matter because the decision sheet told you all the key, all the indicators and all, even though the percentage, they provide us with the percentage, they give us more details rather than generalization. Everybody now implementing a growth wheel. Now we have a great awareness. I give you congratulations, David. We have a great awareness in our startups in Kuwait and also in the GCC about the growth wheel, 360 growth wheel. I keep educate and give advice for companies and startup, even though we're giving for government level people to understand how they can evaluate the business plan when they receive it from the client. And we have a great plan to invert this one in banks or financial institutions instead of collecting from the startup before they taking loan from the bank. So they ask them, please provide us with your business plan, then we can provide you with the loan based on the business plan. Now we can take away the business plan, and we can, with a few decision sheet from growth wheel, they can give the decision, and they can having a very great result with those startups. And the bank will be saving time, saving money, saving employee. And this is, it's my my perspective for the coming years.
Thank you, Dr. Madie, and thank you for this opportunity to share some of the things we've been working on here for the last 15 years. We are over time now, but I just want to say that in the days to come, we're going to demonstrate the Growth Wheel AI, where advisors can generate action plans and map out ambitions. And we're also going to present a brand new business advisor certificate in interpersonal skills to become a trusted advisor. So this is going to be same time tomorrow on this channel for those of you who will be here again tomorrow.
Thank you so much, David. Thank you so much, Safura, for your presentations and your experiences.